Why? Why did comics have to actually start becoming cool in like the late 2000s? It's caused all of this shenanigans now. It's caused all these problems, and it's the reason why I think while the MCU might have a couple of good films going forward, I think the general consensus is there's a very high chance that the overarching stories could be shit. At least we lived through the golden age of comic book movies. So San Diego Comic-Con was this weekend, and there was a lot of stuff to come out, a lot of trailers I still have to get to. But today I want to go through Marvel's Phase 4 slate, or the initial slate that they've given us, because this for sure is not the entire slate for Phase 4. It's only up to 2021. Alright, Phase 4 is not going to be just 2 years, it's probably going to be 4. So in a couple of years' time, they're probably going to announce a second slate of films to be the second half of Phase 4. Because while there's a lot here, which is good, there's also stuff which is missing. Just straight up missing. So we'll start off with the first film in Phase 4. One I'm very happy with, and I think could potentially set up things further down the line, even though it's a prequel, is Black Widow. Now, as we all know, Black Widow is indeed dead. Spoiler alert, from Avengers Endgame, but they are doing a prequel set potentially in the Budapest time where her and Hawkeye talk about all the time. They always go on about Budapest. You and I remember Budapest in very different ways, but I think there's a chance Jeremy Renner could have a role in this film, whether big or small, I'm not sure, just because of the amount of times that has been referenced and the way her past has been portrayed. I think there's a good chance this film will be very gritty, down to earth, much more of a Winter Soldier type film than anything else in the MCU, and I think that's probably a good thing. We haven't had a film like that since then, and her character really plays to that. So I'm happy with that. I like the cast. Florence Pugh, I think, is great, obviously. Scarlett Johansson. She can play anyone, all right? I'm telling you, anyone can play anyone. It's just the way it works, guys. It's called acting for a reason, all right? You're acting to be someone else. And Rachel Weisz, you know, great actress. I think she's really, really talented. And David Harbour. So a good set of people there to be in that. So right now I'm just going to go over the films from the slate, not the overall slate with the Disney Plus stuff. I'll do that tomorrow. Need the content, separate videos. So second on the list is the Eternals. Now, I'm not super hyped about this. I'm not really excited about them. They've not ever been any of my favorite characters. I think that they've used the Eternals as a holder, because I feel like the Inhumans were meant to be what the Eternals are for the MCU. I think the Inhumans were going to be in this position that the Eternals are now, but because of the way the show mucked up and how it was supposed to be a film and it was supposed to come out, I think at the end of 2019, all those years ago, what they said from the previous announcements, and then it turned into that ABC TV show, and it was really not very good. It was pretty bang average, and the first episode specifically was really, really bad. I think the Eternals have taken up that place, which would have been there for the Inhumans, and yes, while I practically know none of the Eternals, there's very few of them I have any clue about, honestly. Much more versed in characters A, B, C list, and the Eternals are probably D list. And I think this is what the problem Marvel have going forward. They've used all their B list characters now. They've used all of them. There's none of them left. They're literally having to go to C and D list to find stuff, to mine, to create into new content. The cast for some of this is good. I mean, Angelina Jolie, you know, she's good. She's solid. I like her in some things. Salma Hayek. Don't know why you'd cast Salma Hayek. I mean, she's cast as one of the guys in the comics, so I don't really get that. But I guess she needs it. She's not really been in anything of any decency in the last 10 years or so. Who else? Richard Madden is in this. He's a Brit, so I'm all happy for that. And Uncle from Train to Busan is in this. When I saw his face, I was like, I know him. And they said his name. I was like, I know that name, but I know the face. He's the uncle from Train to Busan. And I was like, I'm gonna see this film now. I'm gonna like it because this guy is so likable. I don't know what it is, but yeah, not super hyped for this film, but at least there's elements in it which I think I can grasp onto and enjoy with it. The next film on the slate is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, this is where I feel the MCU could be going forward, and it's to do with the Ten Rings and the Mandarin. Yes, indeed. If you don't know, the Ten Rings organization by the Mandarin, We never really got the real Mandarin in the MCU, unfortunately. You know, while we got Tony Stark and one of the greatest character arcs in cinematic history, I would say, over so many films, we never really got some of his biggest villains. I mean, we never got Crimson Dynamo, we never got the Mandarin himself, and Fin Fang Foom as well. You know, there are these things which we never got to see Iron Man have to deal with, and for him to be out of the universe now and never having faced some of his biggest adversaries in the comics, it just, I don't like that. And the fact that they've just shifted that storyline now onto Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi is a D-E-list character even. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with this, but and it's a hard thing because really he doesn't have, as far as I know, a ton of in-depth villains. You know, Iron Fist has villains. Luke Cage has villains, and they're like C-list characters. I feel now, at this point, Marvel have really had a bit of a problem here with all the Netflix shows, because I think in retrospect they wish they hadn't done them, because they would have all these B and C list characters available to make films of, which now they just can't. They can't do it. So that's Shang-Chi. I think there's possibility for the film to be very interesting, very fun. My only qualm with it was that they cast Buddy Awkwafina in it. Or yeah, no, I think that's her name. I just don't think she's very good, honestly. I've not liked her in anything I've seen her in. You could have literally got an A-list Chinese actress to be in this film, an A-list Chinese actress from China to be in this film, and you went with Awkwafina. Don't know if that's the best idea, but what do I know? Nothing, apparently. But the next film on the list is Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Now, man, Strange is my guy. I think he's one of the lads who are going to be leading the MCU going forward, which is no bad thing. At least he has a foot in the ground with the way the world works. Very interesting stuff here. I have no clue where they're going to go with this. It could go in so many different directions, and Doctor Strange is one of my favourite characters of all time. So, interested to see how they do this, how they flesh out the multiverse itself. And it was even more exciting to hear that Elizabeth Olsen is going to be in this film, which is a match I think really works. I said before, if there is a Doctor Strange film in the future, I think the Scarlet Witch could definitely play a role in it, and it just makes sense. It's what they've done. I think maybe a Spider-Man cameo could be fun as well, just for the sake of it, but definitely Scarlet Witch being involved with this is going to be a breath of fresh air in the film, I think, and he can teach her exactly maybe how to control her powers, which is something maybe she hasn't really experienced. She's learned on the job and how to utilize her powers, but I don't think she's learned to understand her powers. And that's something which, you know, the Sorcerer Supreme can really help with. And now they don't have the Infinity Stones or anything like that. So he's really using the cosmic power, I feel, instead of using the stones themselves. Interesting stuff. The last film on the list, the film which I'm really unsure on, to be honest. Thor, Love and Thunder, number 4. Thor 4. I'm surprised they didn't just call it Thor 4. It literally rolls off the tongue. So, I'll say this, and I think I may have said it in my review. If not, everyone I know knows I said this. As soon as I saw Natalie Portman in Avengers Endgame actually be in the film and not just be old footage, I said, they've talked to her, and the only reason she is back is because she's going to be playing female Thor. And sadly, I was indeed correct. I wish it weren't so. But she is going to be playing Jane Foster, aka female Thor. The truth is, no one really liked Jane Foster as a character in the MCU. She was probably the least favourite side character out of any of the films. And that's the genuine truth. It really is. No one really liked the character at all. I prefer Darcy to her, even in that film. And that speaks wonders, because she was annoying as fuck. So, it's weird that we're going to be getting female Thor in a Thor film, in Thor 4, before we've ever seen Beta Ray Bill on screen. It's why I honestly hate comics nowadays. Disgusting. I don't understand how we can be so far in the MCU and have some of the most iconic comic book characters of all time still not be there, yet we'll push a female Thor or other things which I'm not really too happy with in other facets of the MCU going forward. and we don't have classic characters that have been around for 30 years, but because, oh, female Thor was in the comics and had a really good run. Not really, it was an awful run. I mean, it started off actually, I'm going to be honest, okay, and it devolved into utter shit. Yeah, that's my opinion. It wasn't a terrible idea, and then it got worse and worse constantly. And I think that's obviously down to the writers, and it was a shit run. And now, because it's canon, people are like, oh, well, there was a female Thor, so we can do that in the comic, in the films as quickly as possible. Let's do that as quickly as possible. I don't think people understand. No one wants that. That's why no one buys those comics. Why do you think that there's been so many issue 1s of these things? Miss Marvel, the new Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, the Captain Marvel. Why have there been so many issue 1s over the last couple of years? Because no one buys them, and they're shit. No one likes the characters. If you don't like the characters in the comics, why on earth are you going to try and make them into films? And they did this with Captain Marvel, and what did they do? They changed her character completely. She was almost unrecognizable from the character from the comics, because they know that a character from the comics is 0% likable, whereas the character from the films was like 23% likable. There was something there that was like, you're okay. But in the comics, she is an absolute authoritarian. She's an absolute authoritarian dipshit. You know, she has nothing to her of any value. And I really do, that the MCU took 11 years to get to this point, and over 70 years of comic book history. And in a matter of years, it could just go all down the drain. So, DC, I hope you continue making great films, because Wonder Woman, I liked. Aquaman, I liked even more. And Shazam was also fun. So if you keep on this trajectory, who knows, you might be able to dethrone Marvel. It seemed impossible just a mere few years ago from Batman v Superman and Justice League. But I do think there is a possibility DC could come up from behind and give us a real fresh take on these superheroes. I have a quote here from Young Ripper. I think it's Young Ripper 59, but I just saw it on YouTube and thought I'd read it out here. Much like we got with Carol Danvers, expect waves of normies to act like they've always liked Jane Foster's Thor. One of the shittiest comic runs in the last half decade, it's true, because they Googled her for 5 minutes. I believe this is how a lot of people will be doing things. They'll say, oh, well, she's great, it's female empowerment. Yes, but, I mean, you could have the Enchantress involved. You could have Sif come back and have a larger role. You don't just need to do these stupid things. I don't like this. I don't like this. The Enchantress is a great character. Sif is a great character. I know she hasn't been built out in the MCU very much, but there's a possibility to make her someone who could really have a prominent role going forward. So why just make Natalie Portman female Thor? I just don't get it. And this is now the case, and it is the way the MCU is going to be going forward. Something that was introduced, all these new things that were introduced in the last 5 to 6 years in the comics, they're just going to go absolutely nuts and say, well, because it was in the comics there, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and the MCU could potentially collapse in on itself. Also, with the Thor 4, the aspect I don't really understand is, where's Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Because are we just chucking away the potential for as Guardians of the Galaxy? What was the point of doing the thing at the end of Endgame if we were just gonna have him have Thor 4 before Guardians of the Galaxy 3? I don't really get that. I want to see as Guardians of the Galaxy. I want that. Especially before a Thor 4. Is Thor still going to be fat in Thor 4, or is he going to be jacked again? I don't know. I know I want him to be jacked. I don't want fat Thor. I'm not about that. But if he's fat Thor in Guardians 3 and then he's not fat Thor in Thor 4, then that's cool. It's character progression again. I'm all good with it. Also, again, there was no Black Panther on this list. They're obviously going to do Black Panther in Phase 4. There was no Captain Marvel 2 on this list. They're obviously going to do Captain Marvel 2, possibly at the end of Phase 4. At the end there, they had Mahershala Ali come out. He was announced as the new Blade. Now, while I did want Wesley Snipes to potentially reprise his role, the first thing I thought to myself was, hey, Nern, you're right. Because I thought he would probably actually be cast as him initially, like 3 years ago. And then when I saw him, honestly, when I saw him in Luke Cage Season 1, I said to myself, Marvel have fucked up here. Like, he is too talented an actor. He's gonna be a big guy one day. And they cast him in Luke Cage on a Netflix show. And now, the man is Blade. So, obviously, the Netflix stuff is completely removed from the MCU. It's basically never existed. It's the whole unsymbiotic relationship where the Netflix shows were like, we're part of the MCU, and the MCU's like, no, you're not. So maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that Charlie Cox could potentially play Daredevil in the films. Very small, very unlikely. But if Mahershala Ali can go from playing a Netflix character to playing Blade, then why wouldn't they bring a fan favorite character and a fan favorite actor in Charlie Cox and put him in a Daredevil film? I think it's more likely now than it was 5 years ago. So we can only hope and dream. Overall, I think that with the films and TV shows, there's a lot of good stuff here. Potential for a cool next couple of years in the films, especially Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, Thor 4, I'm not sure on anymore. But the Eternals, again, is up in the air. But cool stuff nonetheless. And I really do hope that they don't fuck it up. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel down there. If you didn't, then Thor himself will come after you. You don't want that, you really don't, so just subscribe anyway to avoid that. I've been Narendra the Comic. You've been great, and I'll see you next time. Skadoosh.